Hey folks, Real Honesty with Jarmutlin. I'm Jarmutlin. This is a 25-year reflection on the first 3 episodes of WWE Monday Night Raw. At some point, I will probably do a show about my favorite, least favorite moments, matches from Raw, from Raw over the years, but that would be a whole lot to do, so I might actually just cover my opinions on where I think the evolution of Raw has, gone, and has it been good, has it been bad, has it been great for the industry, it's been bad for the industry, that kind of stuff. So I might do an unpopular wrestling opinion show on that and a 25-year reflection on Raw. But that'll come sometime towards the 11th. I'm actually recording this January 2nd. And the reason I'm doing it now is essentially I've got another work-packed week. In fact, this is my last day off until next Tuesday. And don't worry, I will do some occasional shows here and there, and I will make sure to keep my channel active. But if some months are a little less active, don't worry. Durbinator and I will still do shows. I'll still do some shows when I can, and I'll keep my channel active. So again, just want to say thank you guys. We're in a new year. Let's see where this YouTube channel can go. Let's see where other wrestling fans' YouTube channels can go. If they're good people and good, honest fans, give them a follow. Really, give them support. We as wrestling fans need to support each other. And if we're providing good content and not slandering other YouTubers, let's just make YouTube a more positive community. Let's make the wrestling community in general a lot more positive. But here we go. So 25-year reflection on the January 11th, 1993 edition of Raw, the very first episode. And Bobby Heenan was hilarious. He couldn't get in the building because he was replaced by Rob Bartlett, who I'm sure is a nice man, but was a god-awful commentator. And if Vince McMahon thought it was a good idea to bring Rob Bartlett on there, then Vince McMahon was fucking losing it even in 1993. Then again, he tried pushing Lex Luger as an ultra-powerful babyface, in the next Hulk Hogan. About 6 months after this, which was pretty ridiculous. And oh God, I'm going to have to do a reflection show on that one when he body slammed Yokozuna. But Rob Bartlett, I'm sure, is a nice man. He's a terrible wrestling commentator. He tried his best. I want to say that much. He didn't seem like he hated the product. He either wasn't a fan of it or he just wasn't right for TV. Yes, the guy was not very good at what he did, at least in WWE. It doesn't mean the guy was totally terrible at his job. At least he somewhat seemed to respect wrestling. So I think there are times where he'll get lumped in as being one of the worst wrestling commentators ever. For his job, yes, he was not very good at it. But there's guys like Mongo, Mark Madden, Vince Russo was terrible whenever he was on commentary. So was Ed Ferrara, the fat fucking piece of shit that he is. Oh yeah, and by the way, fire Kevin Dunn. Just, he wasn't a wrestling commentator, just still fire Kevin Dunn. The fact that he's still employed in 2018... again, shows Vince McMahon has lost it. That's one of the few things that I agree with Triple H and Stephanie on, is that Kevin Dunn should be fired immediately. This stupid Bucky Beavertooth motherfucker. Anyway, back to the show. Rob Bartlett, he just wasn't funny. He just wasn't. I mean, it's like, there's nothing wrong with trying something different. This is Baron Art Donovan at the 1994 King of the Ring. Oh dear God, 94, 95 King of the Ring. I think it was 94. Horrible. Absolutely horrible, because he had no idea what he was doing. But Bobby Heenan doing some fun antics. I got to get in there. This is Monday Night Raw. It's the premiere. And he was doing a really good job of promoting the importance of tuning in to Monday Night Raw and how it was a big step and everything. And he dressed up in drag, and he dressed up as a rabbi, because Bobby Heenan's comedic. And even in 1993, the guy was still amazingly funny, despite having been in the business for, 20 plus years by that point. And Bobby Heenan provided some good comedy on the outside. And then you had a match, Koko Beware versus Yokozuna, and Yoko just destroyed him. I mean, what you expect? Koko got jobbed out like crazy. I mean, I think besides the match that he had with Butch Reed at WrestleMania 3, I can't name one other high-profile match that Koko Beware had as a singles competitor. I mean, him and Owen Hart were good as high energy and stuff like that. And Koko was certainly a really good talent, a really good wrestler, but it's just, God, he got jobbed out like crazy. So it was a squash, obviously. It's amazing that Yokozuna was able to not hurt people despite his girth. Now, obviously, he's a tremendous athlete, tremendously agile for his size, but you just think with somebody that big, that even though he would try to work safe, that he would hurt people inadvertently. But he didn't. And I mean, and that's great. That's great. Because that proves what a talent Yokozuna was despite his increasing weight. And such a shame that he died so young. Bobby Heenan pre-tape promo hyping up the narcissist Lex Luger. He kept saying narcissist. I don't know why. It was just weird. It was funny because Bobby Heenan had to praise Lex Luger, and Bobby's of course no longer here, and even if Bobby was around, I don't think he would ever listen to this. But Bobby Heenan having to praise and promote Lex Luger, I'm sorry that Bobby Heenan had to do that because Lex Luger was an idiot. At least the narcissist character fit him because he was an egotist. I mean, I know he's had some health issues, and look, I would feel bad if the guy wasn't a murderer, but Lex Luger as a narcissist fit perfectly. I just feel bad for Bobby Heenan having to promote and, praise him and everything. Then you had Doink in the crowd during a Steiner Brothers Executioner squash match. It was just Steiner Brothers, being able to be powerful and everything. Scott Steiner, more mullet, less crazy, and Rick Steiner as a Doge-faced gremlin. In fact, that would be pretty funny if they actually had a Doge dog with him, but of course he had a bulldog. Oh wait, Scott Steiner's dogs when they attacked Sting at Bash at the Beach 99. It was Bash at the Beach, Great American Bash 99. It was one of the two. I'm sorry if I get those confused, but that was mid-90s, mid-99 WCW, which became a mess. But Doink the Clown's in the crowd, of course, and he's got his arm in a sling and this kind of stuff. It's kind of promoting the whole feud with Crush, and they touch on that at the end. And then you had an IcoPro promotion where if you want your roids, you got to take it's a protein powder, I guess. But it was pretty shit. I do recall seeing that, and I'm thinking, wow, they showed a commercial in one of the later Raws where Bret Hart's promoting it, and I'm watching this, I go, Bret doesn't look happy. And I was a huge Bret Hart fan, obviously back then, still am, but I was like, I don't believe Bret there, and I mean, turns out that Bret didn't really like the stuff. Razor Ramon interview, typical heels, hyping up the match that he was going to have with Bret Hart just a couple weeks later at the Royal Rumble 93, which I may do a 25-year reflection on at some point. And then Shawn Michaels versus Max Moon. Hated the Max Moon character. Of course, it was, Conan. That was back when Conan actually had his hip, in place and everything. And look, Conan is a really, really good athlete, but he was never going to be... His time in WCW, he was pretty over, but there was no way he was ever going to work in WWE. And that's not necessarily Conan's fault. I mean, nobody can make the Max Moon character work. Conan comes across as pretty bitter pretty often. So when he has said that he didn't care for the Max Moon character, it's like, well, you got a shot at a really big time, and you went and did what you did. Hey, he made his mark in wrestling and still is. I guess he's promoting some wrestling company down in Mexico, whatever. I mean, he's popular in Mexico, good. I hope the Mexican wrestling scene becomes really, really hyped, because Triple Mania 25, what I saw of it, not very good. It was a shit gimmick, but again, nobody could have made it good. It didn't matter if it was Conan or or if they put any other Mexican wrestler in that, or any other wrestler in that, wouldn't have done any good. But it was the most competitive match of the show. I mean, I don't know if it should have been, because it was obvious Shawn Michaels was going to win. And then you had Rob Bartlett during this match was doing a shit Mike Tyson impression. It was ear grain, and it was terrible. It was just terrible. Sean and Marty interviews. It was just little pre-taped interviews hyping their match for the 1993 Rumble. Sensational Sherry, will she be in the corner of either man? This was a feud that should have gone somewhere, and the reason it didn't is because, Marty couldn't stay out of his own goddamn way and kept getting on drugs and getting in trouble with the law and everything. It's a shame because this feud had the legs cut out from under it, and even though, and I will do a reflection on the May 17, 1993 edition of Raw, sometime probably in late April, early May, or I'll at least record around then. That's a match that should have launched that feud into the summer, and it had to have the legs cut out from under it because Marty had to lose the title like a month later, and it was a pretty cool moment. But anyway. So then you have Mr. Perfect and Yoko pieces, more Rumble hype and stuff like that. Recaps of Slick helping Kamala see the light and everything. Weird to see Slick as a babyface. Weird to see Kamala as a babyface. Then Undertaker defeated Damien Demento. It's the most famous thing Damien Demento ever did, except appear in the Rumble and then get eliminated. Good job. I don't know who the hell Damien Demento is. I don't have anything against the guy. Good for him. He got to be in the first main event of Raw. It's very few firsts. And he was able to be in the first. So, I mean, like, that's saying something. Even if it was a squash match, even if he probably didn't look like he knew what the fuck he was doing against Undertaker, hey, he got to be in the first main event of Raw. Can't take that away from him. So, yeah, it was a fun time capsule, but it wasn't a great edition of Raw. Watch it once and that's it. And the 18th edition, January 18th, 1993 edition, it was better. It was more focused on matches, where the first one had, Shawn versus Max Moon and then 3 squash matches. This had Repo Man attacking Randy Savage and ended up taking his hat, Randy Savage's, hat that can be seen from space. I love Randy Savage. The man was flamboyant as fuck with his outfits and everything and his character. Nothing wrong with that. Randy Savage, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, in my top 3. But this would lead to a feud a little bit later. Mr. Perfect versus Terry Taylor. Fun fact, they were supposed to actually... Terry Taylor says, and I don't know if this is actually totally true, that the rumors were he might have gotten the Mr. Perfect gimmick. Now, Terry Taylor is a very, very good wrestler. The problem is his charisma was about that. Curt Hennig's charisma was much bigger. And the ring girl, the Raw ring girls that they had wandering around and everything, shockingly, Terry Taylor passed by one of them and didn't try to touch them because he's a perverted fuck. Whose body is broken down and he just strikes me as disingenuous. He just does. But Terry Taylor's a hell of a worker. Him and Nikita Koloff actually had one of my favorite matches in the NWA Starrcade era. And actually of like the 80s in Jim Crockett Promotions at Starrcade 87. I thought actually the storytelling they did with it and the reaction of Koloff finally hitting the sickle was really, really good. It was really good storytelling. So I won't knock Terry Taylor for being a really good athlete. He was. Just couldn't, he couldn't overcome the Red Rooster gimmick, and that wasn't necessarily his fault. That was a stupid gimmick. It kind of couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And Mr. Perfect beats Terry Taylor. Flair runs out at some point. You had Bobby Heenan and Rob Bartlett feud. They were feuding where Bobby Heenan was calling over the phone. That was, calling over the phone. Apparently he was putting the phone in front of his face like this. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Ric Flair appeared. Of course, it was just hype for the Rumble because they had their sudden feud right from Survivor Series 92 on. And this is back, of course, like since Raw had just started. They only had Superstars of Wrestling and All-American Wrestling. I think All-American Wrestling ended in 92, early 93, right when Raw started. They all had the pre-taped stuff, and I mean, a lot of it was live events. You didn't get to see a lot of these big matches and big stars unless you went to the events. So, it was good. It was good stuff, and it was a good way to hype the build between Flair and Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Then Bret Hart had interviews, basic hype and everything, talking about he's going to beat Razor Ramon at the Royal Rumble. And then you have Marty Jannetty versus Glenn Ruth. Glenn Ruth looked familiar, but yet I can't really tell you what he was, where he was from, what company, or who he went on to be. He does look familiar though. And it was decent. It was decent. I mean, Glenn got in a little bit too much offense. I mean, I know Marty had just returned to the company recently, but Shawn Michaels was on the phone hyping this match, saying Marty Jannetty's not even in my league. I'm all in his head and everything. No, drugs were in Marty's head. That wanting to fuck a girl that he thought was his daughter and then wasn't his daughter. Marty, you're a sick fucking freak. Seriously, get pissed away your damn career because of drugs and stupid decisions. Look, we all have our vices and we all make mistakes, but anytime if Marty Jannetty comes across as bitter, he really has nobody to blame but himself. And then you had Doink and Crush recaps from Superstars of Wrestling, where Doink was revealed to just have a fake arm in the sling, and he actually has his other arm hidden in there. And he disarmed himself and crushed Crush. He was armed and dangerous. He decided to arm himself. I'm going to be done with these. Check out, I put a video up actually on my Twitter feed. You would have to search my name plus the hashtag Raw93, but it would be on there. Hopefully it's not buried in my timeline if you want to actually look through my timeline, but I do tweet a lot. But it was just a way to hype their match. Their eventual match would be at WrestleMania 9. Yes, I will do a reflection show on that. Oh, God, I hate WrestleMania 9. I hate it so much. Of course, they show later Repo Man's outside, stole Randy Savage's hat, and just said that before. Razor and Brett, interview pieces, more hype for their match at the Royal Rumble in 6 days. And then Savage is looking for Repo Man in traffic Savage because Savage doesn't play by human rules and says, fuck your traffic, I'm going to do that. Oh yeah, dig it. I'm not going to try to do a Randy Savage impression. I can't do it justice. So I really shouldn't have even done that line. I apologize, but I'm not editing it out. And Tito Santana versus Ric Flair. The El Matador gimmick just seemed offensive. Or at least kind of just silly for Tito. I mean, because Tito is a really good worker. And he was gone soon after this. I think he was gone within like the year. But him and Ric Flair had a big fight feel. During the match, Ric Flair gets attacked by Mr. Perfect. Of course he does. That way, neither man looks weak. Tito doesn't necessarily get beat. And it was nice to see this match happen. It's almost a shame it didn't get to happen on pay-per-view, but at the time they only had a few pay-per-views a year. I think it was only 5 a year by that point. Because 1993 was the first year they had King of the Ring on pay-per-view. And then Ric Flair lays down the challenge for next week. Loser leaves WWE match between him and Mr. Perfect, which leads us to... And by the way, this the January 18, 1993 edition was pretty good. They certainly found their stride a little better here. And then you had the January 25th, 1993 edition of Raw. Vince, Heenan, and Bartlett on commentary. It just... Apparently, I don't know if Heenan was just playing it up or Heenan really hated Bartlett. If he did, I applaud you. Again, Bartlett does not strike me as a bad guy. He just wasn't good in this role. He just wasn't good. It was very obvious that being there wasn't a good idea. Now, don't get me wrong. Bartlett was leagues better than someone. I'll take Bartlett over Josh Matthews. Sorry. Because Bartlett at least at times knew when to shut up. Josh Matthews doesn't. And that was Josh Matthews in WWE or Impact. I'm not just going to shit on him because he's an Impact. Because Impact had some great announcers for a while. I like the team of Don West and Mike Tenay. But anyway, Repo Man versus Randy Savage. Randy wants to get his hat back, but has to beat Repo Man. And my God, Repo Man was out of shape at this point. I know he'd been wrestling for years, but good God. Maybe carbs should have been repossessed from his diet, and then he would have been able... I mean, I'm one to talk about somebody's diet. I'm not in the best shape either, but they should have given him something to hide his physique a little better. But yeah, Repo and Randy Savage, decent match. Of course, Randy Savage attacks Repo Man before the bell, which that's what should happen. Turnabout's fair play. Repo attacks Savage a week before. Savage attacks Repo here. Have that happen. Randy manages to beat Repo Man, and it was a decent match. Decent storytelling. Repo got on some good offense, but it was obvious Savage is going to win. Gets his hat back, celebrates, does the double bicep pose, everything, all that stuff. I promise never do double bicep pose again, as I have string bean arms. A Mania 9 ad. Yay. Oh, God, WrestleMania 9. By the way, I will do a couple reflection shows on some Manias, but if you want to get some real opinion, some really good opinions on all the Manias, because I'll only do a few of those here and there. And I mean throughout this and next year and 2020 and stuff like that, provided that I'm still doing this channel, which I should be. If you want to get all my opinions on all the Manias, check out my WWE pay-per-view history playlist, where I actually review shortly every single Mania match to match. Maybe not the backstage segments necessarily, from worst to best. And that was an arduous task, because that was ranking all of them from, that was ranking 1 through 32. Because 33 obviously was standalone and stuff like that. So anyway, Kamala versus Brooklyn Brawler, of course, Slick there. It was weird to see Kamala and Slick as baby faces. Certainly not bad. Kamala couldn't figure out how to cover Brooklyn Brawler properly, which I get was kind of comedic the first few times, and then got a little annoying, like, okay, let's go home on this, come on. I mean, but it was nice to see Kamala get some cheers. And it was nice to see Kamala have his legs under him. I'm not sorry for that, because Kamala kind of did it to himself. But he was basically just used as a job guy by this point. I don't know if he was part of WWE much past 94, like late 93, early 94. Was what it was, though. Then Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect, easy for me to say. Loser lives WWE match, big fight feel, Perfect bled. Flair shockingly did not bleed. Bobby Heenan was great on commentary, and of course, getting off commentary, trying to talk to Rick and everything. Looked like he was going to give him the ring bell hammer at some point. Mr. Perfect getting the perfect plex out of nowhere. Because Ric Flair wanted to leave. Vince basically said, I'm going to push further down the card because I'm going to go with youth. So you can leave on top or you can be pushed further down the card. I do wonder what would have happened if Flair had at least stuck around to Mania 9. Maybe you would have gotten Ric Flair versus Bob Backlund instead of Backlund versus Razor Ramon, which certainly wasn't a horrible match, but was a very short match. I would like to see Ric Flair versus Bob Backlund at least in a little bit of a match. It would have been nice to at least have Ric Flair stick around to Mania 9, even if Mania 9 was a shit fest. I still would have liked to have seen Ric Flair get a payday, but hey, they left on their amicable terms. Flair and Vince parted ways. Okay. This was a pretty good edition of Raw, despite Rob Bartlett being involved in it. The Flair Perfect match was actually one of the best matches in 1993, at least on TV. And it was really nice to watch these episodes, and yes, I will review the February episode sometime in February. This is probably the only episode where or the only edition of this series where I'm going to talk about 3 episodes of Raw. Because I didn't see the point in doing 1 episode and then 2 episodes on another. So from now on, in February through December, 2 episodes per. And I'll give a little bit of detail on some other ones. In particular, the May 17th episode, which I'm really looking forward to. That was a really, really fun edition. Anyway, you guys like what I have to say? And oh yeah, do you like this shirt? You like this shirt? My sister actually got it for me for Christmas. It was very, very nice. It's been great to be able to see to have my family as a whole here during the holidays. Everybody's currently out of the house, by the way. That's why I'm cutting this review now. They left before I woke up. But anyway, do you guys agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Do you guys want to see some more stuff like this? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Also, it's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.